Footage has been released of a Ukrainian military pilot flying a plane with the image of his son who died in battle and firing on the positions of the occupying Russian army. Igor Parkhomenko, a 50-year-old pilot of a Su-25 fighter, was able to participate in battles with his son for 11 days. 40 days after his son died, he returned to the battlefield and went on combat missions with his son's image. The father says that he fought in his place and took his place. Footage circulating on social networks shows Igor Parkhomenko striking the positions of the occupying Russian army with Western-made missiles with the slogan, "My son, let them die for you."
Ukraine has long asked Germany for German Taurus cruise missiles, which can hit targets more than 500 kilometers away. However, the government under Federal Chancellor Olaf Scholz has consistently rejected these requests. In the current elections to the German parliament, Scholz's party took third place, trailing the first place Conservatives and the second place far right. And the new chancellor in waiting, Conservative Friedrich Merz, isn't as strategically timid as Scholz. Merz endorsed a possible missile transfer last fall. Forbes journalist David Axe writes about this. The publication's correspondent, who has been writing about Ukraine lately, recalled the features of the German Taurus. This is a 1.5-ton cruise missile equipped with a turbofan engine, which allows it to reach a subsonic speed of 0.95 Mach, or about 1,000 kilometers an hour. It is capable of hitting targets at a distance of about 500 kilometers, which allows launches to be carried out without exposing the aircraft to the risk of being hit by enemy air defense systems. It is equipped with GPS and inertial guidance. However, the author of the material considers the most important characteristic of the Taurus to be the presence of a double warhead weighing approximately half a ton. The smaller charge penetrates the target and the larger one explodes it from the inside. The missile's high-tech features explain why the Ukrainian Air Force was so desperate to get the Taurus. They are also why German Chancellor Olaf Scholz's government has consistently rejected Ukraine's repeated requests for the missiles. "I don't think it's right to deliver destructive weapons deep into Russian territory," Scholz said last month, Axe writes. However, he adds, Scholz's party only came in third in the recent parliamentary elections, behind the Conservatives and the far right, and the representative of the winning party, Conservative Friedrich Merz, who will become the next Chancellor of Germany, whom Axe called not as strategically cautious as Scholz, defended the need to transfer Taurus missiles to Ukraine last fall. So Ukraine will probably get a few Tauruses. The only questions are, how many? How will it use them, and when? David Axe muses. He added that the German Air Force has only 600 of these cruise missiles in its arsenal. Until the next generation of American and German missiles enter service, the Taurus remains the only long-range weapon for the German army. This, given the potential air confrontation with a serious adversary, makes these missiles critically important for Germany. However, the German government believes, Axe writes further, that the country can give up about 100 Taurus without jeopardizing Germany's defense capability. This is not a small number, considering that France, Italy and Great Britain have provided Ukraine with several hundred similar Storm Shadow and Scalp EG cruise missiles. German Taurus could increase Ukraine's stock of cruise missiles by a third. The article says, the Ukrainian Air Force will most likely be able to launch German cruise missiles from Su-24 bombers, which have already been upgraded to Storm Shadows and Scalp EG. However, even the specifics of their use do not determine the possible time frame for the transfer of these missiles to Ukraine. Merz will take over as Chancellor only after his Conservative Party agrees to form a new government with the Social Democrats, a process that could take weeks, if not months. Merz may not have the authority or political capacity to push through a missile deal until late spring or early summer. Better late than never, of course. The Storm Shadow and Scalp EG transferred to Ukraine could soon run out, potentially forcing the Ukrainian Air Force to revert to shorter-range missiles and powerful missiles for the most difficult strikes against hardened Russian targets. Thick walled warehouses, underground command posts, warships moored to a pier. In that case, the deepest and most destructive raids could resume when the Taurus arrive. The journalist concludes.
Despite US President Donald Trump's claims that Ukraine is not in a very good position, Ukrainian troops are counterattacking in several important areas of the front, writes military observer David Axe in Forbes. A few months ago, the Russians did have the advantage, but that is no longer the case, Axe says. In and around Toretsk in eastern Ukraine, he says, the Ukrainians are counterattacking and pushing back into the city. The analyst recalled that at the beginning of February the Russians announced the capture of the city, but, he writes, Russian control over it did not last long. 2 weeks after the Russians had completely occupied the ruins of Toretsk, the Ukrainians counterattacked, and quickly advanced back into the city, Axe said, adding that he learned about this by accident. According to him, a Russian military blogger published a video allegedly about an unsuccessful counterattack by the Ukrainian armed forces on American armored vehicles on the outskirts of Toretsk. In fact, the Observer writes, the video shows Ukrainian troops in the center of Toretsk, and not just in the border zone, as the Russian claimed. In fact, the video the blogger posted alongside his missive revealed Ukrainian troops in central Toretsk, and not just in the border area, as the Russian claimed. A week later, western Toretsk was again contested, according to the definitive Ukraine control map. And it was possible a few Russian troops were clinging to an exposed salient jutting into the urban no-man's land. Fighting continues in the city center, and the enemy is losing control, the Estonian analyst War Translated noted. There are reports of complete encirclement of Russian occupiers in several areas. In pushing back the Russians, the Ukrainian brigades around Toretsk, including the 92nd Assault Brigade and the 100th Mechanized Brigade, joined sister units that recently successfully counterattacked on the eastern edge of the 250 square mile salient Ukrainian forces occupy in western Russia's Kursk Oblast. Axe also cited data from Estonian analyst War Translated, who reported that fighting continues in the center of Toretsk, the enemy is losing control, and there are reports of the complete encirclement of Russian occupiers in several areas. The analyst recalled that Russian troops in Ukraine recently changed their priority to the Toretsk axis after they were recaptured from the fortress city of Pokrovsk, and that this, he says, is especially offensive to the occupiers. Even reinforced by troops transferred from the Pokrovsk axis, the Russian regiments in and around Toretsk are retreating, the Observer writes. A mining city with a pre-war population of 35,000, Toretsk is important. It straddles high ground overlooking important supply lines threading along the Ukrainian side of the front line. It's true that Ukraine has struggled to mobilize enough infantry to keep its best brigades fully manned. But it's not true that Ukrainian forces are getting buried. In fact, in recent weeks they've advanced in at least as many sectors as they've retreated.